It's Argo.
In today's video, I'm showing you guys how to design an astronaut streetwear style design in Adobe Photoshop. I linked some design assets that you guys can go download right now to follow along with this tutorial. With that being said, let's get started.
Guidance control online, over.
Before you start designing anything, you need to go find the design assets. That way you can actually design, right? Because you can't just make a design out of thin air. You have to have something to go off of. Now, if you're an artist, like an illustrator, you can just illustrate your own graphics. But if you're somebody that doesn't have a heavy illustration background, that's fine. You could just go find design assets as long as you own rights to them or download them the proper way. So what I would recommend doing is using sites like Envato Elements. Let me show you guys what that looks like. I use Envato Elements for everything, just like this hypnotic, colorful shape animation that you saw at the intro. A lot of the other elements, such as this mountain grid, I also found there. So anyway, you can find everything on there. And if you guys would like to sign up, I do have an affiliate link in the description below for you guys. But another thing that we need to talk about is preparing the actual assets. Now, sometimes if you're using, like, let's say a realistic photo such as this astronaut, you will need to prepare it. In order to prepare this, let's go ahead and import it into our document, and it's already separated. And this is the file that I'm giving you guys below. So we don't really need to do anything else. Let's just drag it into our actual artwork file here. This is very small and it's obviously going to be pixelated as soon as we resize it, since this is not a vector program, but we will fix that in a second with a screen printing method. The document size I'm using today is a 15-inch by 18-inch document. And you can see that when you go up to image and canvas size, it's 15 by 18 at 300 resolution. And that's usually like more of a merged by Amazon document size. What I want to do is I want to take my astronaut and rename this layer so we know where it is. And you don't have to do this, but it definitely helps a lot. And what I want to do is press Command T on my keyboard, and what that's going to do is put a transform box, a bounding box around my astronaut. I'm just going to hold an Option, resize it. We're going to make it pretty big at first. Before we do anything else to this astronaut, there is a problem. He is lacking contrast, so we're going to bring some of that back using the Camera Raw filter plugin in Adobe Photoshop. So press Command Shift A, and what we want to do is we can zoom in, not too close, but a little closer. And now let's go ahead and play with the highlights and the contrast levels. And we don't really need to mess with shadows. We can bring out a little bit of the whites, not too much, even lower those, honestly. Bring up the shadows. Just play with these levels, honestly, until you find something that you are happy with. We can even dehaze it a little bit. So just kind of play with it and figure out what you think looks good. The main thing is we need contrast between the shadows, midtones, and highlights. We are pretty much ready to start adding some color and separate the colors on this astronaut so we can start adding other design elements to this design to make it really pop. Now in part 3, we're gonna be creating the actual design, and there's gonna be a lot of the same stuff being repeated. So just pay attention. And if you guys need to slow the video down, definitely do so. But what I want to do now is use this threshold method to separate some colors and add color to the astronaut in order to set the stage for the final design. The method I'm about to show you guys I've used before, but another YouTuber by the name of Intuitive Designs brought this to my attention. I kind of forgot about this method. I don't typically use it because I do a lot of DTG printing, but when you guys screen print, it is going to help you so much. So anyway, let's go ahead and do it. The first thing we need obviously is the astronaut. What we want to do is go to this little half circle right here. And this is going to be our adjustment layers. We want to go all the way down to threshold, okay? And what this is going to do is make our design look sort of like this. And this is going to look really ugly at first. We are going to use this threshold to separate the midtones and highlights. So in order to do that, we just need to kind of play with the levels a little bit. You don't want to lose too much detail, of course. So we want to find like a happy middle ground. I'm thinking like 99 or 100 looks pretty good. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and unlock the background layer. So this is our BG layer, right? Our background layer. We want to just hit that little lock and unlock it, and we can name this background or shirt color even. So what we want to do is click on threshold, hold in shift, and then select BG color, and it's going to actually select all of those layers. Now what we could do is hold Option Command E, and that's going to duplicate it on a separate layer, going to really help you guys work efficiently. From here, what we could do is we can get rid of the background. There's two ways to do this. We can go up to select color range and just select the black. I don't like to do it that way though. So what I want to do is use blending options. So we're going to double left click. So left click twice on this threshold layer. It's going to bring up layer styles. We're going to go all the way down to where it says blend if gray. And we want to hold in Option, and we are going to drag this little arrow tip to the right. It's going to separate the arrows, what it's doing. Make sure you hide all other layers before doing this. And as you can see, it's deleting everything, and that's exactly what we wanted. So let's go ahead and right click now and convert this to a smart object. And now it is just white, and that's exactly what we wanted. Let's repeat the same process and make sure we get some of the highlights now. So let's turn everything back on. Let's double click on threshold again. And now we want to create some highlights. So we're just going to drag this all the way to the right about, I don't know, somewhere right here. Again, you want to go to the very top layer and then hold in shift and then select the very bottom layer. You can go vice versa from bottom to top or top to bottom. To combine those layers on a separate layer, press Command Option E. And then we want to click on this layer twice again and do the same exact thing, guys. And you can do this with as many tones as you want, honestly. And then right click, convert to smart object. It's going to get rid of the background. Now you can turn on your BG shirt color layer. And as you can see, we have 2 tones now, right? And we want to make sure we label these. So this is going to be the highlight layer, which needs to go above the other layer. Now what I want to do is drag in my color palette that I found on Adobe Color. Now let's turn on highlights and let's add a color overlay to highlights. And what we can do is just select whatever color we want. This teal color is really nice. I like it. And then what I want to do is hold an option and click and drag down so it's copied over to midtones. We're going to go to that color overlay now in midtones. I really kind of like the contrast of this. So we're going to hit OK. So let's go ahead and actually group our astronaut now because we did everything we needed to do. So let's go ahead and select everything again, press Command G, and let's name this astronaut so we know exactly where he is in his own little group. This is the point where we're going to start bringing in more design assets in order to really structure this design, adding some text and all that good stuff to make this exciting. Another amazing thing about Envato is you can download unlimited amounts of fonts, and I love it. So I typed in space under fonts, and now what I'm going to do is just find one that I think will fit the vibe, I guess, of my design. And I already found a few that I really liked. I like this sci-fi bronze one. Now that I downloaded my fonts, I want to hit T on my keyboard and start typing something out. But first I want to take my foreground color and make it white. So I'm using this little arrow on the left-hand side and we're going to make it white. And then I believe this font is called Sci-Fi Bronze. There it is. So I think we're going to name it Space or something like really simple, or we can just make it a NASA design. Why not? And at the bottom I just typed in the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, but I want to separate it, so I think I'm going to do this on the second line. What I want to do now is toggle on the astronaut, and I'm going to select him and then press Command G on my keyboard in order to duplicate that entire layer, and we're just going to drag them down a little bit. If you're going to be screen printing, make sure you keep all of your separate colors on different layers because you don't want to merge them all together. It's just going to make the screen printer have a hell of a time trying to print it. But if you're using a DTG printing method, it doesn't matter. You can print full images, so it doesn't matter. And we're going to end up fixing all the little nuances, like obviously his helmet is peeking into, NASA. That's fine. We're going to fix all that in a second. I'm not too worried about it. While he's right there, I'm going to figure out some sort of shape I can add around him. So what I want to do is go to my pen tool, so we can hit P on our keyboard to go to the pen tool. Let's just make some random shape. And I want to make this red just so it's really poppy. I think I'm going to make some triangle shape. It looks kind of like a nacho, doesn't it? We're going to drag this under the astronaut now. And I want to make sure I add a stroke instead. And we can take the fill color and just make it transparent. So now we are left with something like that. And it looks like I didn't finish my pen tool. So we do need to finish that. And you just go back to the pen tool to do that. And now it's actually a finished shape. And we can even make this line even thinner. Let's go ahead and make it like 15, whatever you want. If you're into like even numbers, you can go 14. That's completely up to you. What I want to do now is go to Illustrator and import some other design assets that I found. So we're going to paste this in place, smart object it, and then kind of figure out where we want this to sit. And then what we could do is we can mask this out. So we're going to go ahead and hold in Command, select our shape 1, and that's going to make an outline around everything, which is the custom shape that we just made with the pen tool. And we can make a layer mask on these mountains right here. And as you can see now, it is masked. What I don't like though is that the top part is not peeking through, and I wanted that. So what I want to do is just use the lasso tool and mask around this little part right here. And we can fill that with black. This looks super cool. I like the vibe of it. What I want to do is toggle on this astronaut one more time and just kind of resize him. Now what I want to do is add a solid color fill above everything. And let's make it a different color. So I guess we can use our color palette. That's why we have it. But we want to make sure we're not copying the same color as the astronaut too closely. Another thing I want to try to do is mask this astronaut. So we are going to select that same shape, that triangle shape, the nacho shape, whatever you want to call it. And we are going to mask this astronaut out with it, and then select the top again and make that show through. So we're going to go ahead and edit, fill, and we are going to fill that with white. And now it's going to show back through. That's exactly what we wanted. So now the astronaut's being cut off. That looks super cool. We're going to add some text right here on the left, so I'm not too worried about it. There is a problem, obviously. The mountains are not showing because the astronaut's cutting them off. So we're gonna delete the layer mask and kind of rework that around the astronaut. So I'm gonna repeat that same process, select that nacho shape, add a layer mask to the mountains, and then take the lasso tool and make sure I add those back. I do think that there needs to be more color contrast, so I'm gonna try to experiment with maybe like a red color. See, I think that looks really, really cool. Maybe even more of a pink. Yeah, see, this looks sick. Obviously, there's some things happening right here, like there's colors that are peeking out, and I don't like that. So what I could do is go to this layer mask again with a hard round brush and just mask out certain parts. And this is an easy way of really making sure you are adding clarity to certain parts of your main design asset. And it's as simple as that. I want to make sure this pink line sits above the astronaut because right now it's not, and it just looks really funky. So what I could do to fix that is select both the color fill layer and the nacho shape, and we can name this nacho shape if we want. In order to duplicate that nacho shape really fast, what we could do is just hold an option and then make sure we add a clipping mask to the nacho shape. And then we can select both layers and do Option Command E, and that is going to obviously duplicate it on its own layer like we did before. So now we have just the nacho shape, and we do want to take that shape that we just duplicated and drag it above the astronaut. So we have the nacho copy above the astronaut, just like that. I made a mistake right here. What I should have done with that nacho shape was change the stroke color to that pinkish color, and then we can drag that above everything, and that way the astronaut sits below it, and then we could have still made layer masks to our astronaut, but I decided to work harder, not smarter. What I'm gonna do is go to NASA, and we're gonna use a polygonal lasso tool. And what I wanna do with this polygonal lasso tool is copy the same angle as the nacho, and I just wanna delete the bottom half of NASA off. And then we're gonna invert that layer mask by pressing Command I. Using that same layer mask, take a hard round brush, and you could delete certain parts of this text. That way it's not interfering with the astronaut. Now we could focus our attention to the bottom text. So what I'm thinking for the bottom text is we could drag that above the astronaut, or maybe keep it below and make it smaller. Yeah, I think maybe we could just keep it below. There's two nacho shapes, so you do have to make sure you cut both of them out, and then do the same thing for this top one. A little trick is if you hold in Shift, it will create a perfectly straight line. And we have a lot of negative space right here on the left. We can totally do something with that if you want to. Let's add some random coordinates right here. Pasting that in place. You got to be careful doing this because you don't want to give away people's information or anything like that, obviously, but this is obviously a public place. So we want to copy that, and we could kind of just add those in here. Another popular thing that a lot of people are doing these days is adding the actual color palette to the design. I've seen a lot of homies do this, and I kind of dig it. So I'm gonna try it out right here. So let's just make 3 circles. You could just go to the shape too and change the color that way, but I like color overlays. I've always liked them. We can name these color circles, whatever you wanna name them. It does not matter. Do something like that. That way they pop out. At the top, I'm just gonna type in join the team at NASA. I don't know. Something like that. See, I kind of like the contrast between that. Join the team at NASA. And I have these like weird circles that I found. So let's go ahead and try to use those. I want to add a color overlay to these. You know what? I like these better than that grid shape, and just blend the bottom in a little bit. I can even add some random numbers right here if I really wanted to. 1s and 0s, why not? The only problem with the circles that I just used is the color palette isn't actually accurate. So we will need to fix that. So this middle color, or what is it? The top color actually is going to be this more pink color. That looks much, much better. So if I zoom out now, you guys can see what we have going on. What we could do is group the entire design together now and just name this final design. And again, you will want to go through the colors and make sure all of them are separated properly before screen printing. But if you want to DTG print this, you are good to do that now. One other thing is, since we have a color fill here, I do want to select everything below that, group that together, and just make sure that is clipped to it. That way, when we hide the background of the BG shirt color, it's not going to show through, if that makes sense. Like if I were to unclip that, here's what happens. See, we don't want that. So anyway, that's why we did that. And I want to go ahead and mock it up on a shirt. If you guys want to buy this mock-up, you can do that on my website at charliepangus.com. I will link that in the description below. And let's add a screen overlay. That's it for this tutorial. If you found it helpful, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss all of my free content. I give you guys plenty of free design resources, free content every single week. And if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, you guys can do that at charliepangus. I'll see you guys later.